You've probably assumed ancient women everywhere lived silenced and powerless next to men's decisions. One society breaks that assumption completely, and historians still argue why. You'd assume power for ancient women always meant one rare queen breaking through, a single exception quietly proving the rule around her. Actually, real power meant something else entirely. Ordinary women controlling land, leadership, and law every single day, not just once. Most people assume the opposite when picturing the ancient world. So let's test that assumption across 5 very different civilizations. You're about to travel through Egypt, Sparta, Etruria, Kush, and one confederation historians rarely mention, comparing exactly how much power women actually held. You land in ancient Egypt, where a woman named Hatshepsut didn't just influence a pharaoh, she became one, ruling Egypt outright for over 20 years. Egyptians accepted a female pharaoh partly because their belief system already allowed goddesses like Isis to hold real cosmic authority and power. Here's the detail nobody expects. Hatshepsut wore a ceremonial false beard in official art because pharaoh imagery simply had no female template yet. Egyptian women outside the palace could also own property, initiate divorce, and testify in court, rights many later societies quietly took away. But that's not the wild part, because Egypt's female pharaohs remained rare exceptions, celebrated precisely because they broke an otherwise male rule. Now here's where it gets interesting, because the next stop looks nothing like the palace politics you just left behind in Egypt. You arrive in ancient Sparta, where girls trained physically alongside boys, wrestling, running, and throwing javelins in full public view daily. Spartan women owned as much as 2/5 of all land by the classical era, controlling wealth most Greek women never touched. Visiting Athenians reportedly found Spartan women shocking, since exercising in public in short tunics scandalized neighbors who kept their own wives indoors. Unlike Athens, where women stayed confined indoors managing household tasks, Spartan wives openly debated politics and openly criticized the men around them. But there's a catch. Spartan women still couldn't vote, hold office, or command armies, their power staying economic and domestic, not political. Turns out, the truth is even stranger once you leave Sparta behind and step into a civilization the Romans deliberately tried to erase. You reach Etruria, where women reclined at banquets beside their husbands, something Greek visitors considered borderline scandalous behavior for a wife. Etruscan women appeared in public, attended sporting events, and were literate enough to have their own names recorded proudly on family tombs. Here's the part historians still argue about. Some Etruscan tomb inscriptions list a woman's mother's name instead of her father's entirely. Greek writers openly mocked Etruscan wives as scandalously free, mistaking female visibility for moral looseness, rather than simple everyday social equality. This is where the story splits, because visibility at a banquet is not the same as holding actual formal political power. Now consider what this really meant back in Rome, a city that eventually conquered Etruria and quietly buried its example. You travel south into ancient Kush, where women called Candaces ruled outright as monarchs, not as wives standing behind a throne. Queen Amanirenas famously lost an eye in battle, then personally led Kushite forces against invading Roman legions along the Egyptian frontier. Kushite succession sometimes passed through royal women directly, and Candaces held religious authority alongside military command, a rare full combination. Unlike Egypt's occasional exception, Kush treated female monarchy as a normal, repeatable part of how power legitimately passed between rulers. Somewhere along the way, someone in Kush decided a woman leading soldiers into battle wasn't unusual. It was simply expected of a Candace. Now here's the twist most people never hear, because the strongest case for female power isn't a queen at all. You arrive at the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, where clan mothers, not warriors or chiefs, actually selected and removed every single male leader. Land, longhouses, and harvested crops legally belonged to women, meaning male chiefs governed only with property they never personally owned. Think about surviving that political system, night after night, knowing your entire leadership position depended on women's continued approval alone. If a chief failed his people, clan mothers could formally strip his title, a built-in check no queen elsewhere quite matched. And once you know this, everything else makes more sense. Everyday systemic power beats one spectacular exception every single time. So which civilization actually gave women the most power depends entirely on whether you're counting famous exceptions or ordinary daily authority. Egypt gave one woman a crown, Kush gave several women armies, but the Haudenosaunee gave ordinary women permanent structural control. You clicked on this expecting one dramatic queen's story, and instead found an entire confederation quietly running on women's authority. Look back at that silenced, powerless ancient woman you first imagined. Then picture a clan mother removing a chief with a single decision.